good day, everyone. So, first and foremost, allow me to introduce myself first. I'm Hazel Bellio from BSED English 3A. So, I'm here to discuss the literary work or poem of Edgar Allan Poe, which is The Raven. So, before we dig deeper on this topic, I'm going to play a short video for you to understand more the poem.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, for vainly had I sought to borrow for my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven, of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. Perched, and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird, and bust, and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, "Nevermore." Then the thought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, by his angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul, with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore? Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all of the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
Okay, to sum up kung ano yung nasa video, in introduction of the poem, the raven begins at midnight on a bleak December night, as man dozes in his chair. At the beginning pa lang of the poem, diba, you are able to know when and what season of the events takes place. Bakit nga ba pinili ni Edgar Allan Poe yung month of December? Though we have 12 months, diba? Actually, the month of December here represent death of a calendar year. And he also chose to set the poem at midnight because it is the darkest part of every night, diba? So upon flying of the raven, the conflict of the poem when the raven is distraught over the loss of his loved one Leonore. Because the man here is so upset dahil sa pagkawala ng babaeng minamahal niya. Actually, in the poem, it is not specifically said paano siya namatay, but she actually died because of tuberculosis. Therefore, this man cannot move on or forget Leonore. Parang nangungulila pa rin siya as he always think her every time. Whereas in the rising action of the poem, suddenly he hears a knocking, tapping, rapping at his chamber door. He discovers it is a raven. Upon thinking to Leonore, he thought that there is someone who knocking his door. At first, he ignores it, but he became frightened dun sa kaluskos ng mga curtains. That's why he decided to see who's in the door. But when he opened it, there's no one there but the darkness, and he calls out, Leonore. At nag-expect na darating siya, but all he hears is the echo of his own voice. Kayo, diba? Upon reading or watching the poem, diba? You could feel the sense of fear and sorrow that the man possessed because the man experiencing an internal psychological conflicts that actually reflects a condition ng author na si Edgar Allan Poe, because he lost some of loved ones like his mother and wife and others, which particularly a woman na malapit sa kanya. At nung sinara niya ulit yung pinto, he hears tapping again and checked the window as he figured out that it was the raven and flew dun sa sculpture ni Athena. And in the climax of the poem, after lengthy conversation with the bird, the speaker asks if he will ever see Leonore again. The raven replies, nevermore. After hearing the word nevermore by this speaker or man, he feel upset by the fact that Leonore will never come back. He also being captivated kasi yun lang yung laging sinasabi ng raven, and he think to himself that the raven will probably leave him just as his friends and loved ones did, and the raven responded again, nevermore. Actually, yung raven or bird dito is not literal na nagsasalita ng nevermore. Diba, as I have said, the man or author here is experiencing psychological conflicts dahil na rin siguro sa pagkawala ni Leonor. It is like iniisip niya lang that the raven could talk or talking. Then, after hearing the replies of the raven, sa isip niya, the man or narrator sits himself directly in front of the bird kasi na-confuse siya trying to understand what it means by nevermore. While in the following action, angry with the bird's answer, the speaker kicks him out. Bakit kaya naging sad yung speaker or man sa raven? Actually, he get mad because he thought that the raven was making fun of him and telling na maging sad because of the love niya towards sa isang girl which is Leonor na namatay. He thought the raven was sent from the evil to make him devastated about Leonor. And sabi niya sa sarili niya na kakalimutan na niya si Leonor. But the raven responded again, nevermore. He asked if he will ever find relief. But sabi ng raven, nevermore. He asked again whether he will hold Leonor or see her when he reaches heaven. But then again sabi ng raven, nevermore. Then the speaker or man called the raven evil or prophet because he thought that he may be a visitor from the evil. He believes the bird to be a prophet or some agent sent by Satan to cause him severe physical or mental suffering. In the resolution of the poem, the sorrow and sadness that comes with the loss of a loved one can never be undone. The narrator or man keep asking questions pero habang tumatagal, mas sumasakit yung mga nare-receive niyang sagot because the raven replies only nevermore, which is masakit. Until nainis siya, then pinagtabuyan yung raven. But the poem ends with the raven still sitting on the bust of Pallas or dun sa sculpture ni Athena. And the narrator lost his sanity or yung ability niya to think normally. It actually affects his mental health. That's basically the summary of the poem. Now let's move forward on the author, which is Edgar Allan Poe. He was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. He was an American author, poet, editor, and literary critic, considered part of the American Romantic movement. Edgar Allan Poe is considered part of the American Romantic movement because he had the style of the Romantic age. Kasi during the American Romantic movement, yung mga styles ng mga writers during that time is often Gothic genres because using Gothic imagery was another way para i-explore yung vast possibilities of human emotions and feelings. Kasi during the American Romantic movement, merong tinatawag na 5 eyes, which are imagination, intuition, individuality, idealism, and inspiration that actually romanticism possess. And yung mga writers that time was inspired by these concepts, katulad nga ni Edgar Allan Poe, wherein yung mga poems and stories niya explores the darker side of the romantic imagination that dealing with supernatural, dark, horror, death, etc. Bali yung dark romanticism is a literary subgenre of romanticism. Yung dark romanticism evolved from the combination of romantic and gothic elements in stories. That's why isa si Edgar Allan Poe na matuturing na vital part of the Romantic Age because he plays a significant role in American Romantic movement. And the third bullet is Poe is famous for his tales of mystery and the macabre. Macabre, ito yung medyo nakakakilabot or may pagka-creepy because of involvement with or depiction of death and injury. Si po kasi yung mga genres niya, puro mystery and it possess macabre style. And the last bullet is, he was one of the earliest American practitioners of the short story and is generally considered the inventor of the detective. detective fiction genre. So ayun, he also write detective fiction genre like yung The Murders in the Rue Morgue. It is a detective story, mostly yung mga genres niya kasi is horror fiction, crime fiction, and detective fiction. Okay, let's move forward. What is elegy? An elegy is a form of poetry that typically reflects on death or loss. Traditionally, an elegical poem addresses themes of mourning, sorrow, and lamentation. Now, as you can see, we have 18 ravens here, which includes some of your names, but unfortunately, you're not able to share your ideas because it's recorded discussion. Sayang naman. Nakaka-excite pa naman tong pick a raven. Okay, let's choose a raven and this supposed my question. Why the literary work or the raven considered as elegy type of poem? Share your ideas. Okay, so this poem is considered as elegy type because the narrator here suffering loss and experiencing sorrow para kay Leonor. Okay, theme. The theme is the central idea of a poem. The theme is more than the topic or subject. It is the poet's opinion of the subject, which is the actual theme. Okay, the themes of the ravens are first is madness and despair. Because when the narrator or man continue to ask question, diba, yung raven only replies nevermore, which his reason para ma-break down as he desperate na makakuha ng sagot from the raven. Ginawa niya is he asked again several questions and hoping for different answers, but the raven always replies nevermore, which drive him to madness and despair at the same time. Parang nawalan na siya ng hope na makakatanggap siya ng ibang sagot mula sa raven. The second theme is death and the afterlife. Because the poem includes death and the speaker asked the raven about his name at kung saan siya nanggaling. At sinagot niya rin yung tanong niya ngayon. Sinabi niya na yung raven is from the underworld. Since he mentioned yung night's Plutonian shore, wherein yung Plutonian kasi is a reference to Pluto. Hindi yung Pluto na planeta, but rather the god of underworld. Dun sa Greek mythology, tapos tinanong pa nung speaker kung makikita pa ba niya si Leonor sa heaven or afterlife. Then sabi nung raven is nevermore. That's the reason kaya niya sinabi na messenger siya from the underworld. Yung raven. And the third theme is loss and grief. Because as we all know, the narrator lost his beloved Leonor. And throughout the poem, diba, he's consistent sa pag-iisip sa kanya, which cause mental side effect or grief. And this is also the reason why he lost his sanity dahil sa kakaisip kay Leonor. But if we will going to analyze the central theme of the poem, it would be the human thirst for self-torture. Why? Bakit kaya yun yung central theme of the poem? Actually, si Edgar Allan Poe during the Romantic Age, he is one of the poetic examiner of human nature. Basically, yung mga stories and poems niya are explores the dark side of human mind. Just like this poem na yung narrator or man dito crave for self-torture. He knows that Leonor is dead or dead, and yet he tortures himself with the idea that she could come back, diba? Actually, we people sometimes craving or have a thirst for self-torture, diba? Yung bang pwede naman na hindi but you still choose to torture yourself. Now my question is why? Why we tend to torture ourselves to the things that will hurt us the most? Bakit ginagawa natin yung isang bagay kung alam naman natin na it is not healthy and good for us? Bakit kaya? Actually, kaya human thirst for self-torture yung central theme of this poem because Edgar Allan Poe was in a large amount of pain nung sinulat niya to. kasi namatayan siya ng asawa at nanay. And in addition to why people keep doing things that will hurt them, I think kaya natin nagagawa yan because it will relieve us at the same time. For example, may isang babaeng nasaktan ng isang guy. Alam niya naman na in order for her to move on is she need to unfollow him sa FB or any social media site or account para di niya makita yung mga post niya, yung pangalan niya, basta anything about him, about that guy. Kasi that's the first step kasi to forget him, 'di ba? But she find herself stalking the guy every day because that's the only way to make her relieve. Para ma-answer yung curiosity niya, 'di ba? Para ma-answer yung curiosity niya na ano ba yung ginagawa ng guy. Because that's the only way to make her relieve and hurt at the same time. Okay, let's move forward to the tone. The tone in a story indicates a particular feeling. Your tone in writing will be reflected of your mood as you are writing. Actually, I want you to share your ideas here but let's see who will be the one who will answer the question if ever. Yes, actually there are a lot of tones that we could see on the poem now, but the most fitted one is sorrowful and despondent because the speaker of the poem has lost his love, Leonor. Despondent, ito yung parang hopeless, malungkot, which actually seen dun sa speaker or man of the poem, diba? He can't forget Leonor, which make him sad because his girl was gone. And wala na talagang pag-asa na bumalik siya because she already dead, which give him the poem a melancholy effect or yung tinatawag natin feeling of sadness. Okay, let's move forward to the rhythm. So what is rhythm? Rhythm in the poetry is determined by the stressed and unstressed lines of poetry that are present in a line. Okay, so the rhythm of the poem is dum da dum da. So, kapag babasahin natin yung poem, yung stress words niya is nasa first word and this is how we read it. Once, up, on, mid, night, dreary. Ganun siya basahin at yung mga stress words niya. Okay? Rhyme, on the other hand, is a popular literary device in which the repetition of the same or similar sounds occurs in two or more words, usually at the end of lines in poems or songs. Okay, so in the first paragraph of the poem, the rhyme words here are dreary and weary. Lore, visitor, door, and more. Napping, tapping, rapping, tapping. Tignan nyo yung first sentence, yung dreary doon. Yung dreary is internal rhyme. Then yung weary is end rhyme. Yung mga nasa right side is what we called end rhyme. And yung nasa gitna is internal rhyme. Okay? Dreary is internal rhyme. Weary is end rhyme. Okay? Under the rhyme, we have this what we called rhyme scheme. So as you can see sa dalawang paragraphs ng poem, may mga red highlighted letters on the right side, which our end rhyme. Bali yung rhyme scheme natin dito is A, B, C, B, B, B. Pag may kaparehas na letters, like yung B means yung end rhymes ng mga sentence na yon is the same. Like katulad na lang ng lore, door, more. Ganun din yung next paragraphs, yung pattern or rhyme schemes. Yung rhyme scheme niya is A, B, C, B, B. Okay? Now, I want you to identify sana yung the internal and end rhyme of the second paragraph of the poem. I'm just going to pick a raven, but I'm the one who will answer it na lang. So here on the first sentence, the internal rhyme here is remember, and the end rhyme here is December. On the second sentence is, the end rhyme is floor. We don't have internal rhyme, okay? In the third sentence, the internal rhyme here is morrow, then the end rhyme is borrow. On the fourth, our end rhyme here is Leonor, and on the fifth, sentence or line is our end rhyme here is Leonor, and on the last one is our end rhyme here is evermore. Okay, so our rhyme scheme now here is A B C B B B. Okay, just like on the first and second paragraph a while ago. Okay, let's move forward to the meter or metre. Meter is the basic rhythmic structure of a line within a work of poetry. So the meter of this poem is trochaic octameter. So what is trochaic octameter? Trochaic octameter is a poetic meter with 8 trochaic metrical feet per line. Each foot has one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. So in this example, we have one sentence of the poem. So sa sentence na to, we have 8 trochaic metrical feet, and here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And dun sa mga foot ng sentence na to, merong tigi-isang stress. Stress word like once, pon, mid, dre, pond, week, and we. So those are the stressed words. Then followed siya ng unstressed word. And that's what we called meter. And the type of the meter is trochaic octameter. Okay, gets po ba? Okay, I hope you understand it. Okay, let's move forward to the form. Refers to the way a poem is arranged, including its line, length, placement, and grouping. A poem's form refers to its structure. Elements like its line length and meters, stanza lengths, rhyme schemes, if any, and system of repetition. So these are the forms of the raven. We have length. It consists of 18 stanzas and a total of 108 lines. Meters, okay, trochaic octameter. Syllables, the raven is mostly broken up into lines of 16 syllables or 8 feet. Rhyme scheme, on the other hand, is A, B, C, B, 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 like what I've said a while ago. So that are the forms of the poem. Now let's move forward to the poetry techniques. So basically when we say poetry techniques, these are the metaphors, similes, onomatopoeia, hyperbole or hyperbole, alliteration, personification, assonance, paradox, oxymoron. So these are some of the poetry techniques. Okay, now let's identify what poetry technique used in this paragraph. Okay, I think on this paragraph we have alliteration because look, on the second line or on the second sentence we have doubting, dreaming, dreams, dared, dream. Okay, that's what we call alliteration. In here we have alliteration on the first line, still sitting, okay? And metaphor dun sa third line. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. Naging metaphor siya kasi it makes a comparison by stating one thing is another thing. It is actually a comparison between two things without using like or as. In the third line, the narrator compares the raven to a demon. It compares yung matanong raven with fire and demon. Okay? In here, the literary device that used is simile. As you can see on the fifth line of sentence, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. As we all know, kapag simile, it uses as or like. There is a conjunction as here, which where the conjunction connects the two things together and gives a clear meaning. So in here, Edgar Allan Poe compares his hope to a bird's flight. Before kasi yung mga mahal niya sa buhay is namatay. And he has this feeling that being abandoned, na inabando siya. So, iniisip niya na iiwan rin siya ng raven just like this bird will likely do na iiwan rin siya. Whereas here, it's personification, wherein a device that gives human attributes to non-living things or animals. In here, the raven is given the ability to speak, like, quote the raven, nevermore. Okay, that's personification. So in this paragraph, onomatopoeia was the device that used by the author. Yung figurative words or sentence is yung tapping and rapping. These two sounds or words are similar to someone knocking on a door. So the device used here is hyperbole or hyperbole because of the exaggeration or overstated siya. Hindi naman kasi hindi naman literal na lumiliyab yung soul niya, 'di ba? Kasi nasabi ng speaker or man na all my soul within me burning. Kasi akala niya may kumakatok dun sa pinto pero yun naman pala wala. May halong pagkainis at takot nung may narinig siya sa window, which is the raven. So anything that cannot physically or literally happen is considered hyperbole or hyperbole. Furthermore, these are the others literary devices that Edgar Allan Poe used. First is assonance. If you would see on the third paragraph of the poem, ito yung phrase that has assonance. Rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me. Kasi, itong word na purple, or yung word na purple and curtain has repetition of vowel sounds, which is yung U, R. U tsaka R. Second is alliteration. In here, it repeated the letter W in a sentence. Third is simile, because it has a conjunction as to join two phrases and it has a comparison. Fourth is onomatopoeia. The word's tapping is considered a sound. That's why it considered an onomatopoeia. The fifth one is personification. The raven here always say nevermore, which is nakakapagsalita and has the characteristic of people because the raven was able to utter that word. The last one is metaphor. In this line, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the door, is confirmed metaphor because the author comparing the smoke na galing dun sa apoy as a ghost, which actually nakaka-produce ng tone na parang haunted, creepy effect, ganun. Okay, let's move forward to the imagery. Imagery includes figurative and metaphorical language to improve the reader's experience through their senses. Here the example of imagery in the raven. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So in this quote from the raven describes the setting of the poem. Poe uses vivid adjectives to describe the scene of horror and uncertainty. Not only does this imagery describe the setting, but also the narrator. The narrator is thrilled by the fantastic terrors, showing that he enjoys the paranoia of the situation. Okay, diction. Poetic diction is the term used to refer to linguistic style, the vocabulary, and the metaphors used in the writing of the poetry. Diction words in the raven. He used words like quote the raven when he could have wrote and the raven said nevermore. We also have here chamber, dreary, this some visitor, ebony. Ebony is like a bird, which actually same as raven. So pinili ni Edgar na gamitin yung Raven, kung pwede naman niyang gamitin yung Ebony. And stern decorum, and the last one is relevancy bore. So those are some of the diction that used by Edgar Allan Poe on his poem The Raven. So before I end my discussion, I want you to leave a quotation which says, whenever grief tries to steal the beauty of your memories, just remember, love never dies. Yes, I really do agree on this quotation because yes, if there is someone left or dies, especially a person that we love, it is inevitable to experience yung grief 'di ba? Given na siya malulungkot at malulungkot ka talaga and lalamunin ka nito, 'di ba? Lalamunin ka ng kalungkutan. And it takes time for you to heal kasi it is a process. So expect na matagal talaga siya. But however, grief tries to steal the beauty of your memories on that particular person. Just remember na hindi ito mawawala in just a blink of an eye. And it will never lose to you because those memories by the person you love will be treasure in your heart even though you're not able to feel anymore her or his physical presence. Okay? Just always remember that whenever grief tries to steal the beauty of your memories, just remember that love never dies by unknown. Okay? Again, I'm Hazel Bello from BSED English 3A. Thank you for listening.